Houston, we have a problem. But it's not this tea. And it's certainly not this movie. Buckle down. Apollo 13 was a movie directed by Ron Howard back in 1995, and it is probably my favorite Ron Howard movie ever. It's about what happened with the Apollo 13 astronauts when they encountered an explosion on their ship on the way to the moon, and a crisis happened, and they had to try and get back. And what's so great about this movie is how much it felt, at the time, how realistic it was to feel in space. Sure, there are noises, there are stuff that you would not obviously hear or see when you were in space, but at the time, it was one of the best, if not followed by all the right stuff. The whole movement part in the ships was fantastic. The sound while in the ship was so good. So good, in fact, that it won an Oscar. And the whole movie just totally made you feel like you were in a spaceship the entire time. It was an amazing experience at the time, and it's still great now. Sure, films like Interstellar went like way beyond and made the film as bloody realistic to space as it could possibly do, but it's still, at the time, 95, even now, I still think this movie is fantastic for its realism, in a sense, for Ron Howard style. What I mean by Ron Howard style is that this film is supposedly based on true events, but if you've seen enough Ron Howard movies, you will know that his true stories take a few liberties. For instance, this one, they never had a fight on the ship, which is actually something that the original crew members almost fought about to get out of the movie. But Ron Howard explained to them there has to be more drama, more tension, obviously for a film's sake. The other part about the film is when Gary Sinise's character is trying to figure out the correct ampage for them to turn on the computer so the computer won't fry. That never happened, apparently. That actually was completely added in. They just started up the computer when they were hitting re-entry. There's a few other things here and there, but that was common of movies like that. Especially with this movie. Heck, when it ended, it had the end up on the screen, which is something that I swear must have died in the 90s, because when was the last time you saw a movie that said the end at the end, besides like a children's movie? So, but actually talking about this movie, it's great. It is so well done. And the attention to detail is fantastic, as I said before. For all the space simulation scenes, they had to use that plane that goes up and mimics 0Gs, right? So they had to do that somewhere in the 70, 80 times to get all the shots. And that's insane, because that's a lot of fuel. But what I liked about this movie as well was not only did we see what happened with the astronauts, which is always so cool, but we get to learn about the guys who brought them home. Funny enough, that's actually what Fan Forstick brought up, was you always know about the astronauts who go to the moon. You never really know about the guys who got them there. And that's what this movie is about. It's about the guys who got these guys home. And I like every single character. Sure, they're not given enough depth, but that's not the point. The point is to show this crisis and how these men, these absolute geniuses, solved it. And sure, there's a lot of technobabble that I've seen the movie God knows how many times and I still don't really know what they're talking about. But that's the point of the movie, is it's giving you this full-on immersion. It's putting you in their seat. Sure, you may not understand anything of what they're saying, but they're putting you in the situation and trying to make it as lifelike as possible. Again, not saying the story, I mean the whole situation as itself. And it is a great movie. It is so fun to watch. It has fantastic chemistry between all the leads. Tom Hanks is awesome in this movie. So is Bill Paxton, so is Kevin Bacon. And Ed Harris was awesome as Gene Kranz. He's one of my favorite characters in the movie. This guy was huge for NASA, and Ed Harris did a fantastic job. His line, "failure is not an option," wasn't even what actual Gene Kranz said, but the actual Gene Kranz liked it so much that that's what he titled his book about the mission. It also talks about the drama that the families went through, and that's fantastic. Hell, I even love Jim Lovell's mother in this film, when she says, "They're flying a dishwasher in space and my son can get it home." Probably just messed that up, but I still love the scene nonetheless. And there's a ton of little parts in the movie. One of my favorite parts of the movie is actually not anything to do with space. It's the story of when they have this interview with Jim Lovell talking about how he used this algae to get him home back when he was a pilot in World War II. And I love that. I love that scene because that is such an amazing story, and Tom Hanks just delivers it like he was actually there. And that's what I also have to say about this movie, is for a bunch of guys in a little box on a studio, they made you feel their experience. You made them feel their fear, their anxiety, their tiredness, their absolute anguish of the entire scene, but also their perseverance, their strength, and their courage. And that's what I commend this movie the most about, is giving these guys a fantastic portrayal. Sure, that little drama thing is a bit crappy that, that didn't happen, but you know what? It's awesome that they portrayed these guys in the way they did, and I love it just for that. So what is my rating for this movie? I would give it a 7 out of 7, but because of those little deterrents, and also the fact that there's so much technobabble that you really don't get it, I'll give this movie a 6 out of 7. It is a fantastic watch. I own it, so that's actually one movie out of my bucket that I'm not going to be able to watch, but I've already reviewed it, so I got to see it on the big screen. The only thing I'll have to say about this big screen showing is, aside from the fan festival that I saw at the beginning of the year, I don't think they showed the highest quality version of the movie, which showed because there was a lot of scenes that were quite blurry and it was a little weird. So it was kind of odd. But really, the best part about this movie was getting to see and hear. I say see because I could just feel it through the screen, was James Horner's score for this film. His score for this film was fantastic. Every single part was great. The use of the reveille horn was awesome, and the choir at the end, fantastic work. It is still an unbelievable loss that we've lost this man, because he was just fantastic, and he produced absolutely beautiful music for this film. So in the end, guys, that's it for me. I did this review because I actually just saw it at the theater, and that was awesome. Thanks to Cineplex Movies for playing that. And I think they're playing Rear Window coming up soon, so I'm definitely going to check that out. Anyway, guys, that's all for me. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll be seeing something soon. Buckle down.